Hi, I'm Brian Vibberts from Vibberts Mixing. I'm a 6-time Grammy Award winning engineer, and I record and mix with people like Chick Corea, Michael Jackson, Disney, Herbie Hancock, Sting, and many others. Today, we're in my mixing room, and this is the studio where I do all my mixing in. And I'm going to be showing you the Antelope Audio Galaxy 64. I'm going to be going through an overview of some of the things that are in the Antelope Audio Galaxy 64. I'm going to be doing a live latency test, so you can actually see what the latency is instead of just me telling you about it or reading about it. And then I'm going to go through the AFX and tell you why I use them, what they're good for, why they're better than other plugins, and I am going to go through a mix and give you specific examples. All of the audio for what I'm doing is on an HDX Pro Tools system, and that is on another computer. I'm using the laptop today only for the control panel, so there's no audio going through the laptop. The routing is very powerful. This part here is the control panel where it's similar to a patch bay for those of you that used to work or still work in a studio where you used to have to patch the signal from one piece of gear to another. That is what's done here digitally. Now usually on the Galaxy 64, if this was in the rack, how I would use it, and this really shows how powerful it is I would be using 64 channels of AFX plugins, right? I would use 48 channels of analog summing, and then I would have 16 channels of more hardware inserts for the other hardware that I have in the racks, because the way I usually mix is a mixture of hardware and software, kind of a hybrid approach. So in addition to that, I would use the AES outputs of the Galaxy 64 for my digital reverbs. Those are also hardware. And I would use the SPDIF output and some of the other AES outputs for my digital metering. So that's how I would usually have it. And so it shows you how much can be done in just the one piece of outboard gear. It's truly amazing. The latency is the amount of time that any kind of computer or processing chip takes to process what it's doing to the signal. So the latency is when the signal starts, and then after it's processed, it comes back, and that amount of time in between is the latency. So let's do the latency test now live so you can see how I do it and what the results are. So I'm taking a single snap. I'll play that for you. That's our source. It's a very percussive sound, so we will be able to look at the waveform very precisely to get a good and accurate location between the two, so we can figure out what that number is for the latency. So I am going through, I'm going to send that snap through the Galaxy 64 AFX. I have 5 of them. Over here I have 2 Pultec style, an SSL style plugin, 1176 style, and a Tube Child 670. So I'm going through those 5, and then I'm coming back into Pro Tools. I have the output as C7. That's going to that channel, and then returning on the channel that I'm recording in, that's also C7. So let's go ahead and record that. Okay, so you can already see that it's very close, but I like to zoom in, so I want to get a very accurate number on this. So I find a point in the original source that is going to be an easy one to find on the other waveform. So I usually get one that's crossing the line there from top to bottom. You can see it's crossing right there. So I made a location 1. That's kind of our starting point. And then the return waveform is here. I want to find that same exact part of the waveform on the returned recorded channel. Seems like right there. Let's make a marker there called location 2. And now we want to see what the difference is between those. So we click marker location 1, shift location 2. We can zoom in on this to show it's going through the same part of the waveform. If we look up here, that length is 74 samples. Now, I'm at 96K, so that's 96,000 samples per second. And this is taking 74 samples to do this processing. So to figure out what that is in milliseconds, let's get out the old trusty calculator. And we take 74, that's the time, 74 samples, and then we divide that by the 96,000 samples because that's the sampling rate of the session. And it comes out to 0.0007 seconds, which is 0.7 milliseconds. Less than 1 millisecond. That's crazy. You're never going to hear that. So it's fast enough that, yes, you can see it on the screen, but your ears won't detect it. So that's the Galaxy 64. Why don't we compare that to another manufacturer? Antelope Audio is at the top of the alphabet. Let's go to the bottom of the alphabet for a competitor and do the same test. So on the same one, I have the source, same source, lined up the same way. The snap, I can play that snap for you. And it's going to go through the same thing, 2 Pultecs, an SSL 1176, and a Fairchild 670. So it's a fair test. Let's record that. Okay, you can already see visually, without even zooming in, that it's farther away. So now let's play one after another. So I'll solo these first. This is the Galaxy 64. This is the other competitor. You can definitely see the difference. There it is. By the numbers, you can hear it, you can see it. So that is the latency test. Definitely, you know, flying colors with the Galaxy 64. So now let's take a look at the AFX, which I use in the mix. The AFX are plugins. They are using the processing within the Galaxy 64 on the chips that are inside this, and extremely powerful. I have 64 channels and 128 AFX, and we'll see how it goes. So let's get to the mixing. If we look here, let's go with the drums first. This is the song, right? And I'm waiting. Let's cut the vocal for a second. So let's take a look at the kick. The kick is broken down to several elements here. Pardon the pun. This is the first one, first kick, and it's going into actually these 2 Pultecs. That's really what I'm trying to get on this kick, is really the beef, the low end of the kick. There's several kicks that are stacked on top of each other, and that is the way it was done in the production. For every kick has a different reason for being there. That one is the low end. Now, even in addition to that is the sub, which is this. That's all the very low frequencies, mostly between 80 hertz and down, but it's really filling in that 30 to 60 hertz area. Then we have this kick. Okay, you can hear that's aggressive. I'll show you what I'm doing with that. The VCA 160 is awesome to get this kind of aggressive sound on the drums. And when I say aggressive, I mean like the smack of the, you know, that sound to be really more accentuated. And I'm doing that here with, the compression is like 3:1, but the threshold is way down. So it really grabs a hold of it. Without it, it's that. So when that's layered in, you get the attack from that, the low end from the other one, and it all sounds together. Now in this song, it's purposefully made to be not like exact in terms of the timing of that kick, just for the feel and style of this genre. If we go to the snare, we'll hear some more drums here. And the clap in there. The clap is here. There's a little bit too much high end for me in the clap, so I brought that down, but I wanted to get more of the mid-range in, so I boosted that. And then the compressor does really well with drums as well. I've used that hardware for years, and it's great to have some software versions in the AFX, the Galaxy 64, that really do capture the real sound of the hardware. So I grew up in the business using all the hardware. So when I think of it, I'm kind of thinking of what would I do if I actually had the hardware in front of me, and that's how I kind of make my decisions. Let's listen more here with some of the percussion. That's like the bongos in there. For the bongos, the API 550 series, the 550B, it has the 4 different EQ. And I am doing a lot of boosting here, as you can see. I don't always boost, sometimes I'm bringing stuff back, but in this case I'm boosting 10K and 5K, because that's really the hands hitting the bongo, and so that brings that out. But then I want the tone of the drum to come out as well, and that's why I'm boosting 1K and also 400. So 400 is bringing a little bit more of that body out of the drum. I'm also, of course, have the 1176, so it really brings it out front in the mix. Now I am doing something different with the bass, and this shows, like if you really push it, if you push the AFX, you can get some really cool results. You'll see what I mean. So I am slamming this. You can see that's going into the red. The gain of the LA2A here, the Opto 2A, is hitting pretty hard. And what I'm doing is I'm getting a fuzz bass sound out of it. So that fuzz bass is adding more depth and body to it as a layer underneath the other bass. The other bass is this sound. And then I add this to it. It adds a gritty character to it because we didn't want it to be as clean sounding for the bass. So, but you can see that I'm slamming the levels here, but I'm not getting digital distortion. It's sounds like analog distortion, what you might get out of the tubes if you slammed a real LA2A. And that's something that's a very cool tool to be able to use in the software. Let's go over a few more things that I have here. The piano, which I'll show you before and after. This is the piano, right? And these are all hardware inserts. So I see where I have it in the insert, which is here, D3 and 4. And D3 and 4 comes over here. So I'm using both some SSL EQ and some compression. If I take these both off at the same time, the bypass all button, that's just the recording. That's with it. So let me go back a little bit more and do that again. This is with, without. You can see the difference. The piano just comes alive. So this has a lot of different synthesizers and has different layers in here, some different rhythmic elements. All of the EQ, all of the compression limiting is all being done with the Galaxy 64. All audio is being done through the HDX system, but you see the laptop over here, just to reiterate, that's really just the control panel. There's no audio going through the laptop. You can have this control panel on the same screen as your Pro Tools, but I prefer to have it on the side so I can always see what's going on with meters and to change things easier. So let's go to some vocals here. At the end, let me just play a little bit of the mix with that vocal in at the end. There's a lot going on. So I really want to focus in on the shine on part of the vocal. There's a lot happening here. There's 2 lead vocals, there's a lot of background vocals, but that shine on I really want to have come forward in the mix. And the BA6A is a great tool to do that. Let's hear what that sounds like soloed.
Shine on, shine on.
If I bypass it,
Shine on,
you can see where it's just not as big.
shine on, shine on.
Now in the mix, it's this.
Shine on,
If I take it out in the mix,
shine on.
it's still there, but it's kind of just blended in the mix. It's not popping out. So let's do this.
Shine on, shine on.
So that's like the focal point of the mix right there. Even when it gets bigger at the end, back here.
Shine on, shine on, till the end. Shine on.
So that's all now being processed through the Galaxy 64. And there's still plenty of processing still that hasn't been used on this mix just because it didn't need that much. There you have it right there, a mix that was done just with this, just with the AFX, and amazing sound.